Welcome to the tutorial of using loops with array. So here you can see we have declared an array of size 3. So it means that we have index number 0 and index number 1 and index number 2. The type of this array is integer, so we can save only integer type values in this array. So let's start with a simple loop where we will initialize the values inside this array, and then we will access those values inside the array and will print it out on the console screen. So for example, using the sample loop, we will ask the user to print the values, because in the first loop here you can see we are initializing the loop with integer I is equal to 0, okay, and that I is less than 3. So it means that we are incrementing I from equal to 0, then 1, then update to 2, and when I becomes 3, so this condition will become false. So this loop will be terminated then, okay, and execution will come to this statement. Okay, so what we are doing in the first loop is actually initializing slots with values input from the user, okay, and then we are going to print a message that printing the values on the screen. So in the second loop we are rendering through the values of the array by using the same syntax of the first loop. Okay, so integer I is equal to 0, I is less than 3, and I plus plus, and then we are accessing through the index number. So here you can see that in the first iteration I will be 0, so it means that the value of the index 0 will be printed. Then in the second iteration the value of I will be 1, so it means that we are accessing the value on index number 1, and then similarly in the third iteration the value of I will become 2, so it means that we are actually accessing the value on index number 2, and that value will be printed out on the screen. So let's see the results. Here you can see, okay, using loop, simple loop, please enter values. So I am entering some values here, the integer values, and you can see, okay, so these values were entered using the for loop. Okay, inside that for loop we have a single statement, that is cn. So that cn is responsible to take the input from the user, and then the execution comes to the printing values cout statement, and then again another loop was executed to print out the values stored inside the array. Okay, so this is the result of using simple loop. Instead of simple loop we have another option, that is using Sizeof operator. Okay, so Sizeof operator is used to find out the size in terms of bytes. Okay, if we don't know, for example, the size of the array, which is here is 3, and we are not aware of that 3, we just know the name of the array, so then Sizeof operator is a very useful concept to use it to find out the size of the array. Okay, size of the array in terms of elements. Okay, so here the Sizeof operator is used to find out the bytes inside the array. Okay, so it means that size of the total array will be more than the size of the single element in the array. Okay, if we copy this single element size, okay, we want to find out this one, endl. So this will print out the size in bytes of a single or individual element of array. Okay, and this statement will print out the size in bytes of the whole array. Okay, so let's see and check it out on the console screen, that what is the size in bytes of a single element in the array, and what is the size of the whole array. So what is expecting here that the size of the single element, here you can see that our array is of integer type, so the size of the single element shall be 4 bytes. Okay, each and individual element shall have size of 4 bytes. Okay, while the total combined size of the whole array shall be equal to 12 bytes. Okay, so the answer to the first, or output to the first statement here shall be how many bytes? 4. Okay, and the output to the second statement here shall be 12 bytes on the screen. So let's see. So first our loop is executing, enter 3 values. Okay, and then printing, and then you can see 4 is actually the answer to the first statement. Here you can see, okay, size of a single element, while size of the whole element is 12 in terms of bytes. Okay, so the total bytes that we have available in the array of integer type is 12, while for each element we have 4 bytes reserved inside the RAM. Okay, so we will use this concept to find out the total number of elements of an array. Okay, so what we will do is divide 12 by 4, so it means divide size of the whole array by the size of individual elements, so we will get the number of total elements in an array, and this can be done using formula of division. St, size of whole array, divided by size of individual element inside the array. So in this case we have 3, actually the size of array in terms of elements. So what should be the answer to this statement is 3, because the size of the whole array is 12, while size of the single individual element is 4. So 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3. Let's see it on the screen. First enter divide. Okay, so here you can see. Okay, so here you can see 4 is the size of individual element, while 12 is the size of the whole array, while 3 is the number of elements that this array actually can accommodate inside the reserved spaces. Okay, so here you can see we have used the same formula to determine the number of elements in the array inside the loop. Okay, so this loop is very similar to the simple loop used before. Okay, so the return value of this formula will be equal to 3, which is equal to the size of the array in terms of elements. Okay, so this loop will iterate exactly the same way as the simple loop actually iterate through the array. Okay, so this loop can be used where we don't know the size of array in terms of how many elements actually array can accommodate. Okay, so we have used this for the user input, the first one, while the second loop has been used to access the elements and then print it out on the screen. Okay, let's see 4, 5 and 6. Okay, for this was the result of simple loop, and this is the result of the size of operator. Now cursor is blinking, you know, for the user input inside this loop. Okay, size of operator loop. Okay, so I want to enter 67, 78 and 89. Now you can see these values were saved inside the array, and then those values were accessed and are printed here on the console screen. So the loops were actually controlled using the Sizeof operator. Okay, these are the Sizeof operator. We have another way of writing a loop and iterate through the array using the range based loop. And the range based loop can be write down like this one. Okay, so this is the syntax. So here what we have done is writing the name of the collection. So here we have st is the array, which is collection of the multiple elements. So here we have three elements, so this is the collection of three elements st. And before this we shall have a variable of type integer, because this collection has of type integer. St has type integer. This is why we have declared this variable as integer. Okay, the question may be raised, why we have used the address of operator here? Because this loop will iterate through each element of this collection st. Okay, so this loop will get the address of the first element inside this collection, inside this array st. For example, st0. Okay, so in first iteration the loop will get address st0. So what we are going to do is we are assigning that address into I. For example, st0 are assigning to the I. Okay, so it means that I and st0 are pointing to the same location. On that location we want to input the value from the user. In the second iteration, the st will give access to the second address or second location. Okay, so the second location address will be assigned to this variable, okay, I variable, and through that variable we will assign a value into that location. In the third iteration, the st will give us access to the third location, and that address will be saved into I, and through that I we will save the user inputted value into third location. Okay, so this I can be called as alias to the single location of the array. Okay, so this actually acts like alias of a variable, of another variable. So similarly we can access the values introducing through the same concept and then see out those values onto the screen. So let's make the above loops as comments. Now these loops are being commented, or you can just delete these so that we may view clearly this program. Here we are copying the value from the locations in each iteration. Okay, so let's see and build it. Here you can see the loop is now executing. We are entering the values. Here you can see. Okay, so this is the another way of iterating loop through an array. Okay, there is another way of iterating loop through collection. For example, using loop through collection. Okay, using loop through collection, and in that collection you can write directly here the values, because this act like the collections 5. Okay, and we want to print this collection. So this kind of loop is also valid and it works correctly. Okay, so what will be actually executing and iterating here is first 3 will be copied to the or assigned to the I, and 3 will be printed in the first iteration. Okay, then 4 will be assigned to I and 4 will be printed, and then 5 will be assigned to the I and 5 will be assigned printed. Okay, I'm sorry, this is not comma was not required. Okay, and let's see. Okay, in this case we also don't need here the array, so and we don't need to print this message on the screen. And let's see the output for this. Here you can see we have iterated loop through the collection. So it means that on the left of the column we can introduce the variable declaration where the values or references will be saved, and on the right of the column we can introduce the collection may be set of the values like here we can see, okay, or the array or other collections like vector. So these type of collection can be used, and we can easily introduce the range based loop for different types of collections. Okay, thank you so much.